which I just now mentioned, but there is a specific section in the agreement. It authorizes the assessee to identify, recruit, and assist in appointing the non-local hotel employees, including the general manager, key personnel, and the members of the executive committee on the behalf of the hotel owner itself. It is also empowered to temporarily assign its own employees to serve as the full-time executive staff of the company. Another section empowers the foreign company to formulate policies governing the hotel's bank account. What in case the group company is empowered to operate the bank accounts in India? I don't think we need to dwell any further on it. Let's look into the strategic fees. The income or the revenue what the foreign company is operating out of India, what does this agreement speak on that? It speaks that the consideration is not a fixed fee. Instead, it is calculated as a percentage of room revenue and other revenues and income, whether directly or indirectly derived from the hotel's operations, as well as the cumulative gross operating profit. Now, what we can see that the foreign company is not getting any kind of fixed fee from the Indian company to lend out its brand, to give some kind of strategic oversight. Rather, its fees is directly linked to the revenue what the Indian company or what its group company, group hotel in India is earning. This remuneration structure clearly reflects an active commercial involvement linking the foreign company's income to the financial and operational performance of the hotel. What more we need to say that this does not actually just seem that foreign companies providing some kind of strategic guidance to it. Usually for the strategic guidance, such kind of revenue model is not into place. Revenue which is directly linked to the operational aspects of the Indian entity is not into place. We have just now looked into the clauses of the agreement which have been analyzed by the Supreme Court. Another important aspect what the court has basically laid emphasis to construe that there is a fee in India are the principles which OECD has laid down. We all know OECD. What are the principles there are three. What the principles OECD has laid down are there are three characteristics of a fee: the stability, the productivity, and the dependence. Basically, if these three criteria are fulfilled by the foreign company out of that arrangement in India, under the OECD principles itself, it can be said that there is a permanent establishment of the foreign company in India. Now, how these three tests are satisfied? I missed to speak on a point that the service level agreement which was there between the foreign company and its Indian subsidiary or the group company, Indian Hotel, which is a 20-year agreement. It's not a short agreement of 1 or 2 years. It is a 20-year agreement which I suppose with the clause of renewable as well, that it can be renewed for further as many years with the group wants. This 20-year agreement at least this term, fulfills the criteria of stability. Another important aspect of the OECD principle is productivity, that there has to be productivity derived by the foreign company. Now, if we look into the revenue earning model, whereby the foreign company is earning income out of the fee linked, which is linked to the directly resources, the revenue model is linked to the operations in India, there is a productivity clause as well, that it is not just a fixed fee what the foreign company is earning, irrespective of how its Indian arm is operating. More revenues being earned by the Indian arm, increased revenue by the foreign company. Third criteria of the OECD principle is dependence, that there has to be some dependence. The third important criteria is dependence. Now, the foreign company's revenue earning in India is also dependent on, basically it is relying on the hotel's infrastructure in India and its staff to carry out its business activity. Carry out its activity, not the business activity. Out of all these three things, we can construe that it is carrying out the business activity. So, all these three principles which are laid down by the OECD are also getting satisfied what we have just now looked at. If you look into all these clauses, so we have gone through all the clauses which have been highlighted by the Supreme Court that these are the important clauses. What could be conferred here? That the foreign company's role was not confined to mere policy formulation. It's not just a policy formulation activity what the foreign company is carrying out. Rather, the agreement confers upon the foreign company a continuous and an enforceable right to implement its own policy and ensure compliance in all operational aspects of the hotel. The key word is operational aspects. The degree or control and supervision exercised by the foreign company clearly transcends the mere advisory capacity and aligns with the criteria of a fixed place PE under Article 5 of the DTW. This is what has been construed by the judiciary. It is saying that basis the analysis of the nature of functions which are carried out by the appellant, it just cannot be said that they were performing merely auxiliary functions. This is a very common plea what the foreign company places is that we are carrying out auxiliary functions, but the functions which we just now looked into, Supreme Court has said that these are not auxiliary in nature. Of course, even I feel that these are not auxiliary in nature at all. These are not just limited to setting up a pattern of activities for the hotel, but these are called core and essential functions of the hotel, requiring it to carry out day-to-day operations in the manner the foreign company is dictating. These are the observations of the Supreme Court. If we look into the clauses, I think it is also very clear that these are the core and essential functions which are being carried out by the Indian arm. These are being directly controlled or managed by the foreign company. They have their say into the day-to-day activities of the Indian operations. The argument that the absence of a specific clause in the agreement which permits the conduct of business of the foreign company on the Indian company's premises is also not, it does not also protect the foreign company, because what Supreme Court has said that the test is not whether a formal right of use is granted, but whether in substance the premises were at the disposal of the foreign company and were used for conducting its core business functions. What is more important is, can the foreign entity carry out its core business operations out of the premises of the Indian entity or not? Clearly, the concept of substance over form comes into play. The very same thing which has been said in the Formula One case as well. The very same point which is now being emphasized by the Supreme Court in this Hack International's case as well, that the core business functions should be carried out on. In substance, the foreign entity has a right to use the place. The legal form does not override the economic substance in determining the PE at all. So what is most important is what operations the foreign company is carrying out in India. Don't go by the documentation. What are the operations the foreign company is carrying out? Those would be analyzed by the revenue, by the judiciary, and basis that the PEs having or not having would be determined under the DTW. The appellant has also placed reliance on the very famous case of e-funds, and it said that in case of e-funds there was no PE in India, and hence there is no PE in India in our case also. They were trying to relate to it. But judiciary has clearly distinguished the case of e-funds with the case of Hyatt International. Reason being, the case of e-fund is being said to be just a case whereby some back office operations were carried out. Please note down, back office operations. But in this case of Hyatt International, these were the core business operations which were being carried out in India, and the foreign company was having a direct say into carrying out of these core business activities in India. It is being said that these were carried out under the direct supervision and these were aligned with the interests of the foreign company. So what is most important here to notice, what activities are being said to be carried out in India by the Indian arm, right? If those activities are something which are very much related to your core business operations, then the plea of auxiliary activity, pleas of back office operations, plea of non-remunerative activities does not arise at all. Another important aspect what Supreme Court has dwelled into and shown its guidance to us is the threshold of 9 months which is there under the DTAA. So every DTAA has a threshold, and foreign companies try to build up a model whereby they put up that an overall visit by an employee does not extend that threshold of 9 months. Let's look into it. The very same safeguards were put in place in this case as well. But what Supreme Court has to say is the relevant consideration is the continuity of the business presence in aggregate, not the length of stay of each individual employee. Once it is found that there is continuity in the business operations, the intermittent presence or return of a particular employee becomes immaterial and insignificant in determining the existence of a permanent establishment. So one may structure agreements, one may structure the visits in a manner that overall the stay of an employee does not exceed 9 month period, but what is most important is it's cumulative stay by the employees is exceeding this threshold, then of course it attracts the permanent establishment in India. You cannot escape it. Supreme Court has finally said that the ability of the foreign company to enforce the compliance, oversee the operations in India, derive profit-linked fees from the hotel's operations in India. This clearly demonstrates that there is a clear and a commercial nexus and control of the foreign company with the core operations of the hotel in India. This nexus satisfies the conditions which are necessary for the constitution of a fixed place PE under Article 5 of the India UAE DTAA. Finally concluding, the analysis what the Supreme Court has done, we have done a deep dive into it. Let us just conclude it. The finer bullet points, the aspects which the Supreme Court has laid down. In this case, essential to say that the foreign company is having a PE in India. The first one is the control and discretion in formulating the strategic plan for all the aspects of the Indian entity. Most importantly, managing the operational bank account of the Indian entity in India. The basis of revenue earning by the foreign company in India, which is called the strategic fees, the basis of its calculation is directly linked to the revenues what the Indian entity is running. This links the income basis the financial performance of the Indian AM. The degree of control and supervision exercised by the foreign company clearly transcends the we cannot say that this is the degree and control what the foreign company is exercising, that this is just in advisory capacity. Rather, all the aspects of Article 5 are being satisfied that it is carrying out the business in India. Most importantly, the continuity of business presence in aggregate by the employees or the expatriate employees is not important. Aspect is regarding the expatriate visit. Supreme Court has said that relevance is the continuity of business presence in aggregate and not the length of stay of each employee. This is all these aspects. Basically, the expatriate visits, the manner in which it had happened, the participation done by the foreign company in India, this is the agreement, and this is the practically it was exercising its complete control over the core activities of its Indian arm. The basis on which the foreign company was earning its revenue out of India, directly linked to the income or the operational activities of the Indian arm. This is all these aspects, and also most importantly, how the place of business had been occupied by the expatriates which were visiting India. This is all these aspects, and also delving into what Supreme Court has said into Formula 1. We are not going into that case right now. The Supreme Court has concluded that the foreign company is having a fixed place of PE in India. Finally, अभी भी आपने देखा होगा बड़ा हादसा होने से बच गए, दोनों बेचारे घोड़े परेशान हो गए, तुम्हारे लेक्चर करे जा रहे हो, एडवेंचर हो गया, हमारे घर जाने दो, पीछे से इसका बच्चा चिल्ला रहा है, भाग गई थी, इसको पकड़ के लेके आए, उसको देखा देखी ये भी भाग ली, सच में बड़ा हादसा हो रहा था। तो एडवेंचर और टैक्स, एडवेंचर करते करते मैं टैक्स की दुनिया में ऐसा खोया कि दोनों बच्चे परेशान हो गए। सो फाइनल कंक्लूडिंग वर्ड्स, इफ यू आर अ फॉरेन कंपनी कैरिंग आउट अ बिजनेस इन इंडिया, यू नीड टू look into your substance over form. If you are not doing that, please do not make a plea before the revenue that you are not having a business presence in India. Look into the criteria and the aspects which have been highlighted by the Supreme Court. If you are satisfying that, it can be rightly said that the foreign company or you would be carrying out the business in India. I am going to make a very short write-up on this, because this was a lecture standing into the wild. Certain do's and don'ts, certain what is my view onto this judgment, some kind of matrix on it. I'll be putting up on a document and will be attaching to it. Please feel free to go through it. Really very happy to have a discussion with you on one-on-one basis on this judgment, trying to map the criteria laid down by the Supreme Court in this judgment with your businesses purely on academic basis. Thanks a lot. Thanks for bearing with me.